I don't know about you, but it definitely feels like something is up, especially when we consider the vast amount of civil unrest that we're hearing about all over the world. Not only in Hong Kong, but in Ecuador, in Haiti, in Iraq, in Barcelona, in France, all at levels that are astonishing. And this is really surprising to me since I've been covering protests for virtually all my life. And a lot of you guys probably won't even hear or know about any of these protests because the mainstream media doesn't really talk about them or cover them. But since I do cover these protests a lot of times on the ground and just keeping a track on it, it definitely feels like there's more protest, there's more unrest, there's more unhappiness than ever on the world stage. And I want to kind of talk about in this video how we are on the precipice of facing either a Joker, Mad Max kind of reality, or a reality that's based off Alice in Wonderland and the Legoland movie. Now, if you watch the Legoland movie, there's a lot of kind of woo-woo, hippie, subconscious messaging in there, which I found very interesting. Holy cow, that's a big bird. Whoa, look at that thing deep dive. Now, both futures are possible, but to get to one, you first have to understand what is happening. And I believe a lot of people don't know what's happening since a lot of this civil unrest isn't even covered. But we're going to talk about that plus a lot more. Sorry, I had to put on my sunglasses because the sun is too high here. And because of the positive response we got from yesterday's video, which is going to be shot in a similar format, we're going to continue these kind of stream of consciousness walk and talk videos as I show you the surroundings of wherever I'm at. I do travel a lot. I do a lot of travel hacking, but we're going to get into all that at the end of this video. But specifically, I wanted to talk about the kind of large amount of unrest. And I believe a lot of this is happening because of a larger feeling of dissatisfaction, a larger feeling of injustice because of larger corruption being more transparent than ever before. And a lot of that has to do with the internet, social media. A lot of that has to do with independent media reporting, which is directly under attack. But when it comes to kind of injustices, getting ripped off, corruption, which I'm going to talk about here, we have to understand there's some personal responsibility, there's larger institutions, there's a lot of greed, but I believe a lot of this goes down to government. The thing that a lot of people put their trust in, put their faith in, and somehow still want more of when it keeps giving services that are just atrocious. Here in the Caribbean, there was a $65 fee to pay for a government worker that we had to pay just to sit there for 5 minutes. There's no way that this poor guy on this island is getting paid $65. But because of corruption, because of some fat cat bureaucrat who's going to pay, who's going to make up this fee, this tax. Again, everything here is tax here. There's a big tourist tax, but that's really just on a micro level, extremely insignificant to the larger scale corruption of larger institutions like the IMF. So a tourist would come here, he would be dissatisfied about something being marked up. I remember a can of Coca-Cola, which is $1, was $7 in Carousel yesterday. And the huge tourist tax there. A lot of this is done because of people saying, yeah, we'll conveniently just pay you because there's no other options. A lot of this is happening because of individual entrepreneurs who are like, hey, I'm going to make some money off this tourist because they have a lot more than me. And other times it happens because of larger kind of systemic greedy corporate mindsets where corporation knows that they have no other options but to get this can of Coke here. By the way, don't drink Coke. It has high fructose corn syrup in the United States. It's horrible for you. Anyway, that's just my opinion. But the bigger kind of takeaway here is that a lot of this happens with our kind of acquiescence. And if we don't purchase that Coke, we don't incentivize that kind of behavior. This is happening on larger scales in astronomical ways, especially with the IMF. I don't know if you're familiar with the IMF, but Ecuador, what I'm hearing, again, the details are still being finalized here from the protests that are happening there. A lot of the protests are happening there because of the austerity, because of the rising of prices of basic goods, which is pushed on and implemented by the IMF on the country to pay back a loan that a corrupt bureaucrat got. And to pay back that loan, they're going to have to raise prices on average things that people need to live and survive on. And because of that, there's a huge protest in Ecuador. And with that huge protest, we're actually getting news that, again, the longer ramifications are going to be interesting to follow, that they were somehow successful. In Haiti, government corruption. In Barcelona, again, government corruption, taxation without representation. France, Macron, the globalism with the yellow vest movement that is repelling it is another major force of people saying enough is enough. And just being able to be lucky enough to figure out travel hacking and being able to kind of travel all over the world, talking to a lot of individuals, a lot of people are just saying that they just had enough. I mean, look what's happening in Hong Kong. A lot of the things that are also happening in Hong Kong are also happening because of the high cost of living in Hong Kong, and also the lack of real estate and the high prices of real estate in Hong Kong. So larger, there's a huge system of dissatisfaction. There's Joby Weeks and Stephanie Weeks. Joby is an amazing friend of mine. He taught me a lot about travel hacking. But the larger point that I'm trying to make, what someone feels as someone as a Westerner, as you may feel as a tourist in some of these places, this is happening on such a larger, more massive, more destructive scale because of institutions in the West, like the IMF, that are just economic hitman. There's a great, amazing book actually called Economic Hitman. You should really read that book to really get a bigger perspective on what's happening on the global stage, because it is far more sophisticated, far more complicated, far more diverse, and far more turbulent than, of course, the mainstream media would let you on. The mainstream media and a lot of the people who have a lot of the power and a lot of the social control, they want to make you kind of believe that they're in control, that everything's fine. And absolutely, that is not the case. A lot of people are feeling the squeeze, are seeing the corruption, are feeling the injustice, and they're making their voice heard. There's a reason you're not hearing about a lot of these protests. There's a reason there's a lot of censorship regarding a lot of these protests, censorship of independent media that covers these protests, that shows you, hey, this is how they're doing it here. We could learn a lot from the Hong Kong protesters with how they're being effective on a micro and also a major level on the global geopolitical stage, playing off, of course, between the rivalry between China and the United States and the insidious trap. But again, there's a lot to learn here, and we have to understand, if protests didn't work, they wouldn't be treated as such big a threat as they are. And because they are, it shows that they work. And they have worked. Historically, it's been people coming together, rising up and saying, hey, we're not okay with this. That actually made the biggest difference. It actually impacted and led to something that overturned a previous system. Now, there is also another particular danger to this. This is why I prefaced the video that I did saying that we could face the Joker Mad Max reality, or we could face a reality that's Alice in Wonderland and the Legoland movie, which is a good reality. It could be really bad or it could be really good. That is determined by you. And I believe, in my own personal opinion, that a lot of people who are calling for more government, who are saying we need more corrupt middleman bureaucrats taking a cut. We need less free market. We need more regulations. We need more people standing in the way of innovation, of freedom, of liberty, that I think will lead towards that negative consequence of the Mad Max Joker future. And I think the opposite of people saying, hey, I'm going to be responsible for myself. Hey, I as an individual understand that I have sovereignty and freedom, and it's up to me to determine how my life is lived, and my community is just in itself on what. There's a lot of people here. Sorry, guys. Oh, wow. They just got flamingos all up in here. Sorry. It's up to you as an individual to decide how you live your life. The second you give up your trust, the second you give up any kind of authority, holy cow, these things, why are you coming near me? The second you give up any kind of power from yourself, you allow people to fill in that vacuum. And a lot of times the people who are most willing to fill in that vacuum, the people who want the most amount of power from that vacuum, are the most corrupt, are the most evil, sometimes satanic, just really bad people who will fully take advantage of you not being responsible for yourself, and they'll make sure that they have a better situation for themselves instead of you. So that's my kind of larger takeaway. I know it's kind of a controversial opinion, especially with what's happening right now with the Extinction Rebellion protests. I mean, there's just videos right now that I saw right before making this video of protesters being assaulted. Holy cow, that's a blowfish. Because they were a part of a protest that was going to stop the trains in the United Kingdom from running. And of course, the people who are trying to live, who are trying to survive, who are living off paycheck to paycheck, who are, or of course, indebted. It's interesting because right now, historically, we have less income inequality than ever before in recorded human history. But I don't think that factors in the larger amounts of debt. But that's a whole nother video, that's a whole nother topic. But a lot of the people who are just, again, the middle class is being destroyed, not many people in the middle class. The lower class who are trying to get on their public transportation, who are getting on their trains, are seeing these guys who are just propagandized that the world's going to end because of the United States and Western powers somehow, again, not even factoring China and India and Africa. Okay, I'm deviating here. But the video just shows the pure amount of aggression and the kind of lack of cognitive dissonance of these protesters thinking that everyone's going to support them, when in reality the lower class that was just trying to go about their day, just trying to live. Holy cow, that's a huge iguana. It just literally assaulted them as they were trying to, of course, block traffic. And that's just, again, the whole Extinction Rebellion, it's funded by a lot of special interests. A lot of it is disinformation, a lot of it is propaganda, a lot of it is fear-mongering, trauma-based mind control, where people are left hysterical because we're not being taxed enough. And that kind of psychology will lead towards a very, very negative path, because it leads down a path that will screw people over. Another article that I read before coming here was an article about Mayor de Blasio setting up new helicopter regulations, and now helicopter businesses, legitimate businesses that would operate if it wasn't for government, are completely out of business, have been completely bankrupted by a fat cat bureaucrat, Bill de Blasio, who wants you to even get licenses to ride a frickin' bike. This is what they're actually proposing. They're proposing you having to go to the wonderful government agency, the DMV. If you want to see how efficient government is, go to the post office, go to the DMV. They're proposing this in New York City for you to go down, register, so you can ride a bike, which is absolutely mind-boggling. That kind of thinking, that kind of lack of responsibility, that kind of lack of sovereignty and authority within yourself is going to lead to a negative future. The positive future is one where you're responsible for yourself, your understanding of the situation, you seeing the situation for what it is, you empowering yourself with knowledge, which happens only through independent media. Again, this is why I believe we're getting as screwed as we are. But you guys are still here. You guys are still a part of this independent media organization. If you guys weren't, I wouldn't be here. And that's why, man, I love you guys. I appreciate you guys very much for allowing us to exist again. I got very lucky. I got some really good friends. They're like, hey, we got a plane. Other friends canceled on us. Come on in. Travel hacked my way down here. They picked me up, and I'm just hanging out here in Aruba. We're going to another place later on today, but definitely stay tuned. And we're also going to be doing more videos with my friend Joby Weeks and Stephanie Weeks, and of course Liberty Weeks as well. So you guys,
flamingos on this island.
Yeah.
Although Liberty's a little bit nervous about them. Either the flamingos or the sand on the beach. I don't know. She doesn't know what to think.
She's getting accustomed to it. All right, guys, have a good time. And you guys have a great time as well. Always remember the small micro decisions you make, whether it's to protest or to raise your voice or to like or share, matter. If they didn't matter, there wouldn't be so many efforts to undermine it and to stop it and to not even make you aware that it's happening. So be aware of that. Just thank you again for watching and being here with Real Independent Media. Stay tuned for more.